Today's video is about the nonfiction that I'm reading. So usually I think about reading for entertainment as fun, fluffy reading. For some reason, I don't think of nonfiction, and maybe that's because I read a lot of nonfiction as part of my job. But if you want to hear about the nonfiction that I'm reading this month, stay tuned. So hello everyone, and welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. I am Miss Thomas, and I thought I would hop on here real quick and share with you about the nonfiction that I'm reading this month. And the lighting's not great. I'm sorry about the light behind me. It's getting to be evening time, and this was sort of an afterthought. It was a last-minute video. Actually, I was going through my book journal that I got as a Christmas gift, and I absolutely love this book journal. And I was writing down the books that I've been reading. And I thought, oh, well, I've really read a lot. I just didn't stop and write down, notes about the things that I read. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll fill in the gaps. I put the titles and authors, and I thought if I have a minute at work, I'll jot down my notes and my thoughts on the books. And so I went to put it in my work bag, and I came across a book that I'm reading for grad school. And I thought, I should get on here. Maybe I'll take these off. There's a glare on them. I thought, I should get on here and talk about the books that I'm reading that are nonfiction. It might be interesting to some of you. I personally, I feel like I read professionally so much that I recognized tonight as I was, having these thoughts, just tonight I recognized I don't really think of the nonfiction that I read as fun or pleasurable. And I think that's just because I associate it with work. It's not that I don't enjoy it. It's not that I don't find it interesting. It's that to me, it's work. It's because it's part of my job. Usually it's part of my job. And I love my job. I absolutely love my job. So it's just unfortunate that I've learned that about myself today, that it's unfortunate that I don't think of these things as fun, the things that I read. So I'm going to talk anyway about what I'm reading right now. And I am ashamed to say the first thing that is nonfiction that I'm reading is not work related. It's my spiritual work, So there's like work for what I do. I'm a reading specialist. So there's the work that I do with students. And then there's the work that I'm doing in grad school. I'm studying reading in the brain and dyslexia specifically in graduate school. But then there's my spiritual development, my spiritual growth. And I typically, when I can, attend Bible study on Wednesday nights with the beautiful, wonderful ladies at my church. And I'm really very blessed to have a church with such good women. And, I think there's at one point, there was about 17 of us. It depends on who can be there. But sometimes I can't make it because of grad school. Sometimes my graduate school is on Wednesday nights, and sometimes I can make it. And sometimes I can just sort of pop in like on the occasional Wednesday that I'm free. Right now, I was thrilled to be free on Wednesdays, and I was thrilled that the ladies at the Bible study were doing Pathway to Freedom by Alistair Begg. And I love Alistair Begg. I had his app on my phone, and I used to listen to his sermons on the way to work in the mornings. And that was sort of, I'd said to one of the women at my church, I said, I'm going through this period where I just don't seem to have the time that I'd like to have to pray and to read the Bible, and I miss it, and I just feel so overwhelmed with my life and with my work and with my grad school. And the wonderful woman, instead of saying, well, shame on you, because she certainly could have. I mean, I'm sure some of you are viewing this and thinking, shame on you. You should certainly make time for the Lord first thing in the morning. I've definitely heard that before, but the reality is I get up and I'm exhausted, and half the time it's all I can do just to drag myself out of bed to get to work on time. So as important as I think quiet time with God is, I just haven't made that time first thing in the morning lately. And so I really felt troubled by that. And so I went into this Bible study. And like I say, it was interesting that it was Pathway to Freedom by Alistair Begg, because the last time I was feeling this way, where I haven't had enough time really to pray and meditate on the Bible, a friend of mine at church had said, well, why don't you try some really good apps? Like Alistair Begg has a phone app, and you can listen to his sermons on your way to work in the car. And I thought, that is fantastic. So that's what I did. And that was before COVID. It was right before COVID. So I was listening to Alistair Begg's sermons on my way to work every morning on my phone, and it was exactly enough time. As soon as I exit the Beltway, the sermon would finish up and I'd be like 5 minutes from work. And I really was enjoying Alistair Begg's sermons every day on my way to work. And I was especially enjoying his sermon series on the book of Ruth. Highly recommend it if you're ever looking for a good sermon series to hear. Alistair Begg does a good one on the book of Ruth. And I found him just on a phone app. Can't remember the name of the app, but if you look up Alistair Begg, you'll find it. So I was thrilled when the ladies at church were doing his book. And his book, Pathway to Freedom, is on the 10 Commandments. And it's on how God's laws guide our lives, or how they should. And I have to say, I'm frustrated with this book. Bible study is tonight. That's probably what prompted this video somewhere in my subconscious. I'm feeling really guilty because I don't want to go. And I didn't go last week. And I did, however, start reading the Bible on my own. I said, you know what? I'm not a morning person. I'm not finding the time that I would like to set aside for God at the beginning of the day, so I'm going to end my day with God. And there are differing opinions on that, I know. But for me, that is what I'm going to do right now. And so I have been reading. I just sort of randomly opened the Bible to what wherever God led me. And it happened to be Daniel chapter 1. And I love Daniel. That's one of my favorite books. You know, Daniel points to Revelation and the whole end time prophecy. And right now, especially, you know, it feels like the world is just getting so discouraging. And even though end times can be a little bit horrific, I think that the prophecies of, you know, the idea that God is going to come and he's going to rescue me and I'm going to be safe with God. And then there's going to be, after the rapture, I believe there's going to be all of these other people that are going to have that opportunity, the same opportunity for God's grace and God's love. So after the rapture, I don't think it's going to end. I think there's still going to be more people who are going to be, you know, extended God's grace and will receive God's grace. So I feel so encouraged by that. I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, I abandoned this book and started reading the book of Daniel on my own. I read a chapter of Daniel every night before bed now. And I feel a little bit guilty, and I'm going to miss the ladies for this particular study. I still see them at church on Sunday. But I wanted to tell you anyway about the book, the nonfiction book. It's not I could do a DNF, but I wouldn't. It's odd. I don't call it a DNF, I guess, because in my mind, I don't think of it as entertainment. I think of it as my spiritual growth, my required reading. And I guess maybe that's unfortunate because that subconsciously I'm taking the fun away from myself. This book, Pathway to Freedom, it started out pretty good. It was talking about, you know, the 10 Commandments and how God's commandments are there, I believe, to protect us, not to like, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, I know there is that perception among some people that, you know, oh, when you become a Christian, you don't get to have any fun and you give up so many things. See, I think just the opposite. I think that one, Jesus had a fantastic sense of humor. And I still like often say to my friends or my children at home, you know, I'm sure God is up there cracking up right now because he definitely has, I believe, a sense of humor. And my son, my son that's in college, one day he came home and he said to me, he said, you know what I learned today in Bible study? And I said, what? And he said, that God is a troll. I said, a troll? Really? Like I picture the little guy under the bridge And he said, no, a troll, like somebody who harasses, you know, like when you troll people on the internet and you just do things to annoy them, I guess. I'm an old lady, so I'm not entirely clear on what he means by troll. But what my son was saying is that God was trolling Pharaoh with the plagues, that a lot of the different plagues that God inflicted on Pharaoh in Egypt in Exodus, not Genesis, Exodus, they were all mocking a lot of Pharaoh's beliefs. And so God was trolling Pharaoh. And I don't think God was amused, you know, and laughing at Pharaoh, but I definitely, what I would give just to pick the mind of God, especially as someone who studies the brain, you know, and is learning about the brain all the time, like the things that must go through the mind of God, you know, I do find it fascinating. But this pathway to freedom was about the 10 Commandments and, you know, love the Lord your God and don't have any graven images. And it talks about the thing about the graven images. It really was interesting and helpful to me. Sort of the point of the study, the ladies in the study were sort of saying the point is that you can't say like, oh, I don't have any graven images. I don't have any statues of anyone else in my house. Check, I obey that commandment. But in reality, the book, Alistair Begg's book, it has us examining, well, what exactly, you know, does it mean to be, to have a graven image? And do we have graven images? And perhaps when we try to make God into something that he's not, that's a form of making a graven image. So, you know, trying to fit God into our own little box or to make God out to be what we want God to be when God in reality is so much bigger. Perhaps that is the breaking the commandment of not making God into a graven image. Or are we making God into a graven image or having a graven image? Now I have to double check. But you shall not have any other gods before me. Well, that's an easy one. When we think about not having any other gods before us, I mean, for me, I tend to make other people my God. And I say that very loosely. I don't obviously go and worship other people, but sometimes I have to remind myself, like, that person is a person. They are capable of mistakes. They are not perfect. I tend to think everyone's, you know, smarter than me, more together than me, you know, somehow wiser than me. When in reality, that is possibly making them out to be a god and having no other gods except the God, my God in heaven. That is possibly breaking the first commandment. So that's something that I had to really examine my heart and think about and look at. Now back to the graven image. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. So yeah, I do think even God, like you could make God into a graven image. You could try and force God into some sort of box when that's not biblically who God says he is. And so we have to go by what God himself says in his word about who he is. And so this book, you know, I don't want to go into the whole book, but it was really helpful and convicting in some parts. However, and this is a big however, when he got to honor thy father and mother, my little tiny human mind went zoop, and I just, for whatever reason, I can't bring myself to go back and attend Bible study and continue with this book. And it's me. It's entirely me, okay? But, you know, he talks about, for me, I was hoping honor thy father and mother would be a biblical, a lot of different Bible verses and where they are throughout the Bible. I like a Bible study where you look something up in the Bible and then you look up other verses that go with that verse and you write those down and you sort of connect all the dots and you see, I love to see in the Bible how the different verses relate to one another throughout the text, throughout the different books of the Bible. But anyway, he took honor thy father and mother and somehow went into a thing about spare the rod, spoil the child. And I just shut down. And I don't want to, you know, launch an attack on Alistair Begg. I do want to respectfully agree to disagree with him on this particular issue. But for whatever reason, I disagree so much that I can't bring myself to finish the book and go to the study. And that is me, okay? I had a horrible childhood. You know, we grew up with a lot of education and financial security, but my dad was an alcoholic. There was a lot of violence and yelling and things like that. And so I definitely have some personal issues with the whole spare the rod, spoil the child concept. And then the other thing is he mocks the people who say, I felt like he was mocking the expression, children should be seen and heard and believed. And he's talking about how, you know, people make light of children should be seen and not heard. And I just felt like throwing this book across the room because I absolutely believe that children should be seen and heard and believed. And aside from abuse, I'm not even talking about abuse. I'm just like, when you say to a child, children should be seen and not heard. I mean, of all the arrogant and ridiculous things to say to a person, your value is only in what people see when they look at you and your physical appearance. I mean, that's how I interpret that. And I heard that over and over and over as a child. Children should be seen and not heard. And I just felt like it reduced me to a lie, you know, to this, you know, this little girl from this well-to-do family that, you know, everything had to look so nice when in reality, my home life was terrible. And so I just really had issue with Mr. Begg's comments in the book. And I have tremendous respect for Alistair Begg. So it's just maybe me personally. And I will also say, I love very much the woman who teaches the Bible study, and I shared with her my feelings about this, and she said, you know, I don't have children, so I have to be careful here, but I would respect your decision if you choose not to come. And that was, I think, a very wise thing for a leader to do. And, you know, aside from the fact that this is a dear friend of mine whom I love and respect anyway, but even if I didn't, you know, I really appreciate her being very, very non-judgmental and saying, you know, I'm not really in a position to, I don't understand your position because, you know, I don't have children and I respect your right to your position. And I think as Christians, that's very important. I think we need to do that more often. We need to be able to say to people, you know, I don't agree with you. I don't understand where you're coming from, but I respect your right to be in the place where you are right now. And, you know, I'm here to listen and I'm here to help when you want to talk. So I wanted to just, I don't know, I'm looking at the timer at 17 minutes about poor Mr. Begg. And I do have tremendous respect for him otherwise, but this just bothered me. The last thing I will say, I shared with my pastor too, and it was like, I just want you to know, you know, I love the women in the Bible study. I respect the Bible study, but I'm choosing not to go because of this. And this is about me, not about the church or the Bible study. And he said to me, he said, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, you have the right to view things differently. You know, he asked me, he said, do you think Alistair Begg is writing from a biblical perspective? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, do you think that you parent from a biblical perspective? And I said, yeah, absolutely, I do. And he said, well, then why not just say, hey, I view it this way and Mr. Begg views it that way. And we both worship the same God, and it's okay that we view this particular issue differently. And the other thing he said to me that I want to share is he said, I would encourage you to go back to Bible study and to share your views with the other women because you might benefit them. You know, maybe they are viewing this in one way and your perspective could help them and could be a blessing to them. Or maybe they don't want to speak up, but your perspective is helping them to find a voice they wouldn't otherwise have. So it's okay to disagree as long as you do it in respect and in love. So, well, this is turning into a longer video than I had intended. So maybe my other book, my other nonfiction that I'm reading, I can talk about in a completely separate video. But I will tell you, just like heads up, I will try and do another nonfiction video. That is a work-related nonfiction that I'm currently reading, and that is called Reader Come Home by Marianne Wolff, and it's on how reading affects the brain, or how technology affects the brain, and how, you know, there's no substitute for a real copy of a book as opposed to technology, you know, how technology can be creating a society of people who are empathetic. And so I will talk a little more on this. I'm reading this for grad school, and for work, I'm in a book club about technology and how to help, you know, young adults navigate the world of technology. I don't remember the name of that book right now. So that's another reason to do a completely separate book on technology and how technology affects today's young adult. Reader Come Home is actually, Reader Come Home, I'm only halfway through, but she's really talking about children who are acquiring reading, children who are like 5 and under. But I do see she gets into children who are older, like around 10 at some point, and that's really good because I'm a high school teacher. So I would really appreciate it if she gets to the teenagers. And the other book is, like I say, it's for my faculty, and we're reading a book together about technology and how it impacts, you know, today's student. So I'll talk about those two in a separate video, I suppose. If you're interested, in the comments, let me know if that interests you. All right, well, 20 minutes in, that's usually my limit. I don't think I have a video longer than that. So I will stop now. And, you know, I don't know if this will interest you or not. I'm just keeping it real, and I wanted to tell you about some other things that I'm reading. So I hope you're reading and you're enjoying what you're reading, and I will get on here soon and tell you about some more nonfiction, the 2 on technology. Bye for now.